Again, welcome to today's links event. I will hand it over to our moderator, Marcella.
Thanks so much, Long, and thanks everyone for joining us for today's webinar, State Models and Supports for Integrated Education and Training, IET. Can we go to the next slide, please? So for those of you who are not familiar with our webinar series, today's webinar is part of our Universal Technical Assistance webinars. We provide these on a monthly basis, usually the last Wednesday of the month. We discuss topics that matter most to the field, the ones that really are at the forefront of your minds. It supports states building their capacity in these important areas. And our webinars are recorded and they will be available to you on the Links YouTube channel. And that's a great way if you want to share this important information with others in your state to do that. Before we get started, and before I turn it over to our fantastic presenters, I wanted to share with you very briefly some of our resources that are available through links. The first one that I want to draw your attention to is among our state resources federal initiatives, and that's the Advanced Integrated Education and Training, or Advanced IET project. This is a fantastic project that you might already be familiar with. If not, I encourage you to use the QR code that you see there on the right side of the screen to access the federal initiatives, and there you can learn more about Advanced IET. Within the resource collection, we also have quite a few resources that can help you as you move forward with this kind of work. We have the Integrated Education and Training Design Toolkit and the trainer resources, which are fantastic if you want to train others in your state using those. We have the IET and Corrections, the companion guide to our IET design toolkit. Also, we have enhancing access using bridge strategies to connect IELCE activities to IET programs. And the QR code on the right-hand side of the screen will help you to access the resource collection and those specific resources. Then if we look at some of our links online courses, we have 3 courses that are
I think we may have lost Marcella there for a quick moment. So as she was saying, the links resources, there are online courses here. Again, you can find those using the QR code on the right, and then also our links community. Again, you can find the QR code to access the communities on links there. I've also put them into the chat. Adria, do you want to introduce our presenters?
Long, I would love to. I am going to come on camera to do that. And we're really pleased today to have an excellent panel of 4 presenters with us. We're going to welcome, and I will tell you a little bit about each of these wonderful presenters in order. First, we're going to hear from KayLynnHamilton. KayLynn is an associate teaching professor at Penn State. She provides leadership and support to adult education agencies and partners throughout Pennsylvania, I should say, in the implementation of career pathway strategies. She presents career pathways, IET, and workforce development planning and implementation workshops at local, state, and national forums. I'm guessing that many of you have crossed paths with KayLynn before. KayLynn has also served as the subject matter expert on various federal initiatives, including IET Design Camp, IET and Corrections, Enhancing Access for Refugees and New Americans, or EARN, and also Teaching the Skills That Matter, or TSTM. KayLynn is the one-stop operator for the Delaware County Workforce Development Area in Pennsylvania. We will also hear today from Nicole Hopkins. Nicole is the iBest Policy Associate serving on the BETA team at the Washington State Board for Community and Technical Colleges. In her role at SBCTC, Nicole manages the growth of iBest throughout the community and technical college system in Washington. She also conducts nationwide trainings on the iBest model, which originated in Washington State. And it's her passion to support the participation of BETA students in pathways that lead to them reaching their educational goals and living wage work. We will also hear today from Sarah Goldammer, who is a passionate lifelong learner and educator. She currently serves as the director of the Southern Illinois Professional Development Center, part of the Illinois Community College Board Professional Development Network. Sarah served as part of the professional development team for the Accelerating Opportunity Initiative, the development of a bridge development basics training, and the implementation of integrated education and training models, IET models. She's coached 40 or more programs creating bridge and ICAPS programs, and she'll tell you more in a bit about what ICAPS is. And she reviews and screens all of the IT or ICAPS submissions in Illinois and provides recommendations for approval by the Illinois Community College Board. Finally, we'll hear today from Ben Conruff, who has worked for the Wisconsin Technical College system for nearly 15 years. Ben began his career at one of Wisconsin's 16 technical colleges before transitioning to the system office as the education director for strategy and improvement. In his role there, he works in partnership with Wisconsin's adult education providers to support IET expansion and success, and also leads the administration of the state's Title II program. With that, I'm going to turn things over to KayLynnHamilton to get us started. Thanks.
Thank you, Adria, and welcome everyone. I think we're in for a really exciting afternoon hearing from those three states. And we're going to get started, however, with just a recap. For some of you, this is going to be a review. For some of you, it may be new information, but we're just going to take a quick look at the fundamental concepts of IET. So let's begin by reviewing the definition of an IET program from the WIOA regulations found at 34 CFR 463.35. It is a service approach that provides adult education and literacy activities concurrently and contextually with workforce preparation activities and workforce training for a specific occupation or occupational cluster for the purpose of educational or career advancement. So that's a lot of information, and there seems to be a lot there to unpack, beginning with the basics of the IET program. IET programs must integrate the delivery of the three required components for a specific occupation or occupational cluster. And those three components are adult education and literacy activities, workforce preparation activities, and workforce training activities. IET must also be part of a career pathway that leads to educational and career advancement and is aligned with the state's adult education content standards. It's important to note that the definition is clear that the adult education and literacy activities must be provided concurrently and contextually with the other two components of that specific occupational cluster. So that's going to be what we're going to focus on these first few slides, is really looking at and really hitting home that it's concurrent and contextual that brings the three components together. Next slide, please. IET programs offer numerous benefits for students who participate. One of the requirements of an IET program is that it prepares students for jobs, not just to provide a training. These jobs are not only required to be in demand, but also must be on a career path so that students can know the steps that they will have to take to advance. IET programs require an adult basic education component. This adult education component must be designed to teach transferable skills. However, they are taught in the context of the occupational training. Additionally, the three required components of the IET are taught concurrently, which helps students accelerate their learning and achieve their goals more quickly. So again, here we heard it again, everything is done concurrently and contextually. Next slide, please. So let's break down the components of an IET, beginning with the adult education and literacy activities, which I'm sure you are most familiar with. And again, you can review the regulations at 34 CFR 463.37. So what are adult education and literacy activities? So WIOA defines adult education and literacy activities as programs, activities, and services that include adult education, literacy, workplace adult education and literacy activities, family literacy activities, English language acquisition activities, integrated English literacy and civics education, workforce preparation activities, or integrated education and training. Well, then what are the workforce preparation activities? Workforce preparation activities go way beyond teaching someone how to interview, develop a resume, or to dress for success. Workforce preparation activities outline the skills needed to be successful on the job or in other post-secondary education and training opportunities. Activities, programs, or services like critical thinking skills, digital literacy skills, self-management skills, including competencies in the following: utilizing resources, using information, working with others, understanding systems, skills necessary for successful transition into and completion of post-secondary education or training or employment, and other employability skills that increase an individual's preparation for the workforce. So then finally, what is occupational training? That is the third required component. And that occupational training is for specific occupational skills learners need to be employed for a particular job or cluster of jobs. Workforce training may include the following: in classroom or online occupational skills training, on-the-job training, incumbent worker training, programs that combine workplace training with related instruction like apprenticeship, training programs operated by the private sector, or entrepreneurial training. WIOA requires that each component of an IET program must be of sufficient intensity and quality. One way to ensure sufficient quality is to base it on the most rigorous research available, particularly with respect to improving reading, writing, mathematics, and English proficiency of the eligible individuals. Additionally, as you design your IET program, remember that elements of an IET program must be provided concurrently and contextually, meaning that the adult education and literacy activities, workforce preparation activities, and workforce training activities simultaneously occur within the overall scope of the IET program and use occupationally relevant instructional materials to contextualize the adult education and literacy standards being taught. One of the key requirements for an IET program is that the program must be designed around a single set of integrated learning objectives, or an SSLO, that identifies specific adult education content standards, workforce preparation skills, and workforce training competencies. The SSLO is a critical part of designing an IET program that meets the requirement for concurrent and contextualized integration of the required three components. If you are wondering whether or not IET is a good fit for your program, think about these key considerations on the screen in front of you. Is there a job at the end of the training? Is there a viable career path attached to that job? Is the job in demand in your region? Will you have interested partners, and will you have interested learners? So there are many other considerations for IET. When we think about understanding community needs to inform the development of new IET programs, there are 5 key areas for research. Key area number 1 is the state and local IET policy and career pathway options. What are your state and local IET policies and local career pathways activities that ensure that you develop an IET program opportunity that complies with the requirements and aligns with career pathway activities as required under WIOA. Key area number 2, regional workforce needs. One component of the IET program is to provide training for learners to acquire the skills needed by employers. When looking for potential IET opportunities, it's essential to have a sense of which industries and businesses are hiring, paying living wages, offering a career path, and challenge to recruit the skilled workers needed to meet the industry demand. You don't need to do all this research by yourself. There's no need to analyze local labor market information for this. Reach out to your partners with labor market analysis experience, such as your local workforce development board or community college, who can provide their insights. Key area number 3 is community resources to support your program. You'll want to identify resources that can support your IET program and the learners who participate, including potential funding sources, if that's not already laid out, training providers, and a network of community organizations that provide supported services. Key area number 4, emerging and promising practices in IET programs. Learn about and get inspired by promising IET program practices from your peers before you decide on possible approaches for IET programs. This research will help you align IET program opportunities with best practices and build on the experiences and successes of others. And then finally, key area number 5 is learner and business needs. Learners and businesses that hire them are key customers of IET programs. To select and design an IET program that responds to customer needs, programs need to have a strong understanding of learner goals, challenges, and experiences, and the workforce needs of the businesses that will hire them. Maybe you're thinking about targeting a particular population or addressing a particular need in your learner community. Taking some time to listen to learner stories and hear about their experiences and needs can help strengthen the IET approach. The same may be true for businesses. Depending on who your training partner or other partners are, you may feel like business needs are already well represented in your future IET work. But if there are gaps, or if you're part of something new, like a specific pre-apprenticeship program, making sure you understand business needs upfront helps to strengthen your program design. IET programs represent a significant investment of time and resources on the part of you, your partners, and your funders. Any program you develop, you want to make sure hits the sweet spot represented by the intersection or white spot on the Venn diagram between desirability, feasibility, and viability. Desirability means that you're meeting learner, business, and community needs. Do they need it? And will they access it? Feasible means you have the operational capacity to design and deliver the program, that the funding, partnerships, and interested learners are there. Can we do it? Viable means this work aligns with the broader goals of your adult education and potentially your partners' programs, and can be supported and sustained, which is, should we do it? Understanding community needs helps you to answer these questions. So as you're progressing along the development of your IET, there are 3 types of IET goals: learner goals, program goals, and partner goals. These goals are high-level goals that define what you plan to accomplish through the IET program. Goals should connect to evaluation and continuous improvement efforts. Learner goals are goals that describe expected successful workforce and academic outcomes for the IET program's target population. These learner goals are overarching goals for all learners who go through the IET program, not necessarily the individual learner goals that are developed during intake, which will be specific to individual learners. Program goals describe the overall desired outcomes of the program. Partner goals are goals that focus on engagement and outcomes important to partners. When working on developing these goals, you'll want to look for the SMART goals: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. IET programs require thoughtful planning for effective delivery of the contextualized training. You'll want to work with your partners to identify and plan out the best delivery approach for your program. There are 4 common instructional approaches for delivery, and they're on the screen in front of you. Occupational training and adult education instructor team teach 100% of the time in the same virtual and/or physical space. Both teachers equally plan and deliver the IET program's instruction in the same space at the same time with the same learners. Approach number 2, the occupational trainer and adult education instructor deliver instruction concurrently while in separate virtual or physical spaces 100% of the time. The instructor and trainer meet to discuss instructional content, but in general, plan and deliver their own instruction. Approach number 3, occupational trainer and adult education instructor team teach at least some of the time in the same virtual and or physical space, and the remaining time they teach concurrently in separate spaces. Co-planning meetings will determine who plans and delivers the content in the team teaching settings, and each instructor plans the content with their respective classes. Lastly, approach number 4 is the delivery approach, in which one qualified instructor with the required credentials for teaching both the occupational skills and the adult education content, either in virtual or physical spaces. The curricular materials for the training component offer opportunities to contextualize adult literacy and workforce preparation skills so that they are relevant and directly applicable to the learner's career pathway goals and the content of the training curriculum. To contextualize workforce development and adult basic skills content, you'll want to build learning activities that include occupationally relevant materials. You'll want to work with your training provider and employer partners, or draw on established IET or contextualized adult education curricula to find resources and ideas for learning activities and materials. You may need to modify these resources for your identified IET content, learner needs, or levels. So now that we've had a very brief overview and review of key concepts and considerations for IET, we have a chance to hear specific stories and perspectives on how this work has unfolded and continues to unfold across different states. While there are required components, there is, of course, no single right way to build a program, and our state presenters today will share from their various vantage points. While all states must meet the federal WIOA requirements outlined in the preceding slides, states have taken different approaches to state policy, IET program requirements, their application process, and funding approaches. The states that are presenting are all examples of this with very different models. So we posed a set of questions to our state panelists, Nicole, Sarah, and Ben, about the starting point and growth of IET in their states. Each story unfolds differently, but you'll hear pieces related to the questions that you see here. What caused or helped your state to focus on IET? What were your first steps in getting started? What does IET currently look like in your state? For example, models, funding. And what do you wish you had known early on, considering what you know now? But before we get into the stories from our panelists, we'd like to open up the chat to hear from you. Please share your answers to one or more of those questions. So please feel free to respond to any of those questions in the chat. And we're happy to hear what everyone on the webinar has to say. Anyone want to share with us things that are going on in your state before we hear from our esteemed panelists? Well, so we do have a new message from our colleague in Colorado. One thing that helped our state focus on IET was the monthly work group hosted by our state staff. Linda from Vermont, who mentioned that the first step was reading the WIOA requirements, and then we participated in the IET design camp. So we have a little bit of idea what's going on in Colorado and Vermont. Would anyone else like to share? In Georgia, every program has to have an operational IET with enrolled students. We focused on IET as a statewide strategy because we firmly believe it is a mechanism to increase the wage earning potential for students. Okay, so every program in Georgia is required to have an operational IET with enrolled students. Our colleagues in Kentucky, we were behind in developing IET programs and had little success with post-secondary partnerships. We had staff in the IET camps that moved on to other jobs and had a gap and a need for understanding. Yeah, that happens so often when you have what you think are the right people in the right jobs, and all of a sudden they're not with you anymore, and you have to sometimes start completely from scratch. That is a challenge. Jonathan from New Jersey agrees, had the same kind of scenario in New Jersey. To help bridge that understanding, we hosted a summit that featured AIR explaining IETs. Yes, I think I remember when that event occurred. Again, back to Kentucky, we were behind in developing IETs. Okay, that's one we already read. And I think we'll stop with one more. And I think we have a message here from Dan in Hawaii, who says that IET is a work in progress in Hawaii. A state team attended the IET basic design camp. So it's good to hear that we are kind of across the board. And while that may be, you may feel that's either you're in a good spot or maybe not so good spot, it's good to know that we are continuing to grow this experience across the country. So with all of that being said, and thank you for your contributions, and you can keep writing in the chat and viewing those. I know there were several more comments, but I don't want to take any more time away from our panelists who are going to have some really interesting information to share with you. So with that being said, I'd like to turn this over to Nicole, who will be telling her story first. Thanks.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Kaylin. I'd like to give some special gratitude to the LINCS team. I really appreciate your work on IETs, and then also the invitation to share a little bit about Washington's story. Next slide, please. So I'm going to start with the history of IBEST. And so we've been doing IETs for quite some time, and IBEST, which is an acronym that stands for Integrated Basic Education and Skills Training, is our IET statewide. And over the last 20 years, it really has remained one of our state's most successful delivery models for connecting adults to living wage jobs. The way that we do this is three components that you'll see here on the slides. We transform the world of adult education through contextualization. We tap into the combined expertise of faculty through integrated team teaching, and we provide wraparound support and navigational services to promote student retention and completion. And so as we're thinking about the history and kind of why IBEST was even necessary to begin with, it really was a model that challenged the idea that English language learners and adult basic education students had to complete their coursework sequentially before the adults could begin learning the skills that they might need for a career and earn college credits that they could put toward those career goals or moving further in a degree or certificate. And so in 2002, the first IBEST pilots began to really explore alternative ways to contextualize adult learning to the workforce. And the IBEST model really embodies one of my favorite mantras, and it's the both and. And that's because it's bold enough to say that adults aren't starting brand new and fresh when they come onto campuses like empty vessels where we're just going to pour into them. Our adult learners bring a wealth of lived experience into the classroom that we can really use as the foundation to build on. We can use that lived experience, add some foundational and essential skills, and integrate core skills, and integrate the training that they're going to need in the workforce. So again, we do that all at the same time. That's that both and model. Next slide, please. So to give a little bit more context, here's a visual. I know it's quite fancy, about the traditional pathway for adults in basic education in Washington State. This is what it looked like before. So from ESL courses, they'd complete all of those through level 6 or so, then they would transition to adult basic education courses. And what we found is that it could take students 1 to 3 years to complete the entire ABE sequence before they even reach the degree or certificate program that they would then need to complete to move into high demand living wage careers. And what we realize is that really is not realistic for the majority of working adults, especially those with families, for them to spend 3 to 5 years in school just to earn a certificate. We needed to get folks out into the workforce quickly. Next slide. So a lot of work went in to those initial pilots, and we wanted to ensure that the work that we were doing was effective. And so we had to do a bit of research and to track that. Yeah, I think it's the next slide, if you don't mind. Perfect, thank you so much. And, you know, lucky for us, the pilots and that tracking and that data showed that the original pilots were wildly successful. And because we were trying something new, we needed to look kind of long-term. And so we went backwards and looked at some data of adult learners starting in the late 90s. And we did a longitudinal research study tracking 35,000 working age adults, and we tracked them for 5 years. Our target population was folks who had a high school credential or less, or who were English language learners. And our sample included students who were enrolled in college credit courses, adult basic education, English as a second language, and GED prep. So what was happening before IBEST was that only about 5% of ABE or ESL students were reaching what we call the tipping point, and I'll talk about that in a second. The tipping point is what we named the title of our research at that time. And what they found after that 5 years of tracking is that after 1 year of college plus a workforce credential, that really opened up the gateway for our students to gain living wages and employment. And that's what we call the tipping point, that 1 year of college and that workforce credential. And at the end of that 5 years, English language learners who reached that tipping point on average earned $7,000 more per year on average. And it was even higher for adult basic education students. They were earning $8,500 more per year on average. So this was a significant impact for our students, which let us know that this idea and that this pilot and this IET was worth investing. So what are the components of IBEST in Washington State or our IET? There are really 3 key components to our model's success. And the first one is contextualization. And so this is where we take our college and career readiness standards and we contextualize them to our career and technical education and transfer program outcomes. This provides a real-world learning experience for our adult learners. The second component is team teaching. I feel like this is where a lot of the magic happens for us. And it's bringing together a content instructor with their expertise in a specific discipline and an adult basic education instructor with their expertise in teaching skills to adult learners. And together, they really create a very dynamic and rich learning environment for our students. The third piece of the iBest trio is our wraparound support and navigational services. And this is the place where our students really can find community and connection with their institutions through their student success navigator and coach. We know that our students feel connected to their college or to their community-based organization. They are more inclined to stay, more inclined to complete, and also it creates a sense of belonging for our students. So there are several ways that iBest is done in Washington State. We have 3 different modalities, and it's really come a long way since the iBest delivery model's original inception. And I think that one of the benefits to iBest being a delivery model versus a program for us is that it has the flexibility to really adjust to the current needs of our students. We also had a worldwide pandemic, which forced the rapid evolution of iBest and the way that the model operates. And one of our newest modalities being offered is 100% fully online, integrated team teaching and contextualized learning through our platforms online. And so while we're still exploring the outcomes of that shift, so far, it seems that students are reacting very positively to that change and that flexibility due to several factors of students during the pandemic having to be caregivers, not only for their children, but for family members. And so having the opportunity for students to continue their education and receive that support, receive the expertise of 2 instructors at the same time has been a benefit in getting folks the skills they need to continue on to the workforce or to skill up. Next slide. So how do we fund iBest in Washington State? So iBest is federally funded through WIOA Title II, like a lot of adult education programming. But in addition to that, the Washington State legislature have made a $750,000 investment into adult basic education specifically to promote program growth and development. And we also incentivize the expansion and development of iBest through our performance-based funding models. So the first one that we'll see over on the right in the green box is our full-time enrollment. So the college presidents at the time of development with iBest decided that they were going to fund iBest at a higher rate through enhanced full-time enrollments or FTEs. So iBest students receive 1.75 full-time enrollment or FTE for each iBest student that is enrolled. The other way that we do that is through our Student Achievement Initiative. And this one further incentivizes iBest by awarding additional points for basic skills students in our college programs. And I'll talk a little bit more about what that looks like and how that kind of translates to actual funding for our providers. Next slide, please. But before we look at some data, which is always fun to look at, I'd like to talk a little bit about where we are now and also where we're heading. So right now we are working on a focus on equity-centered program and curriculum design. And so we're aiming to identify ways to integrate research-based methods of diversity, equity, and inclusion into our iBest model and into the classroom. Representation is extremely important for our students' success. And so making sure that they see themselves in the curriculum and that it's culturally responsive is key and critical to the success of our students. The second piece is that we're working on the integration of iBest into our guided pathways reform in order to address some of those equity gaps that we see. And the way that we do that is develop plans to connect basic skills programming, which will give our basic skills students access to college, career, and transfer pathways. We know that kind of the smorgasbord model of students picking and choosing the courses that they take along the pathway is hit or miss when we talk about success. Students end up with a lot of credits, expending their financial aid, and not having a degree or certificate to go into the workforce. And so in order to mitigate some of that, some of those challenges for our students, creating pathways and creating strategies that get them on a pathway and keep them on a pathway is what we're aiming to do. And having IBEST at the base of those pathways or meta majors or program areas of study ensure that our basic skills students have the same access to those pathways and success as any other student who comes onto our college campuses. And the third thing that we're doing is we're focusing on how we can provide more access to financial aid for minoritized students and students who are experiencing barriers. One of the ways that we're doing that is through the growth and continuation of ability to benefit. In 2020, we were one of the 3 states who were approved by the U.S. Department of Education to implement a state-approved third option for our students to access federal financial aid. And so in Washington State, if a student is enrolled in IBEST and High School Plus, which is our competency-based high school diploma program, they can access the full range of financial aid funding, which is a big win for our students. All right, next slide. Let's talk about some data. So we define the success of IBEST by the success of our students and the vitality of our economic ecosystem. So I'm going to share a little bit of data related to the success of our IBEST students. We monitor the workforce outcomes for IBEST students. And so this data comes from the National Reporting System, Table 11. This is the outcome for achievement of integrated education and training participants. And so down at the bottom, about 83% of IBEST students earn a post-secondary credential. And this is significant because it provides that opportunity for direct entry into high wage and high demand employment. Secondly, over half of our students achieve employment a year after a program exit, which is huge. Also, there is a bit of an error on this slide. In that second column, I think it says twice that it's after the second quarter after exit. It's supposed to be the 4th quarter after exit. So just wanted to point that out. Next slide, please. So IBEST enrollment. I wanted to give a snapshot of the past 3 academic years. I don't have the data yet for 2022 or 23, but I think it's really clear to see that even though IBEST FTEs have dipped a little bit as a result of the pandemic, they did not dip nearly as much as our other adult education programming areas, even like our high school completion programs. And this is due to a couple of factors. Our students are entering pathways with very specific career goals in mind, and then their learning is directly related and contextualized to those goals. They're motivated to stay on the path, and they also receive that intensive wraparound support throughout their IBEST academic journey. And so seeing that students are maintained, they're retained, they're matriculating was another indicator of the success of our programming. Next slide. Okay, so this is the last data set that I've got for you all. And this is the SAI point in student progress and completion. So when our students are successful, we know that it has a positive impact on the return on investment for our providers. So on average, basic education for adult students earn about 91 points per academic year. IBEST students earn 339 points per academic year. That's 3 times more than any other basic skills student. And so as I mentioned on slide 26, IBEST students earn more points on average because they're hitting their targets. This is especially important because the SAI points account for 50% of our performance-based federal funding model and 5% of the state annual operating budget allocation. And so it's also a benefit because the latest version of the SAI 3.0 points has an equity focus, and that places a real emphasis on measuring the success of the students who encounter the most barriers. And in adult basic education in our state, 72% of our students are students of color. And so we keep a close eye on those outcomes and provide support to make sure that we're closing that equity gap. So lastly, I just want to tell you a little bit about the challenges, because while we have great success, there are also challenges that come along with this. And in Washington State, I think that the challenges we experience are really current with the national trends that we see in adult education as a whole. We're experiencing a teacher shortage here. IETs and IBEST specifically is not necessarily the traditional teaching method. So bringing instructors up to speed, getting them trained, and then working through that first year is always a bit of a challenge for us. The other thing is that this IET model can be expensive on the front end. And so sometimes institutions and our providers are a little reluctant to expand, even though there is a great return on investment. It's about coming up with that money at the front end. And the development and expansion legislative allocation does help with this, but I mean, we have 36 community and technical colleges here and 6 community-based organizations. So $750,000 is it's like a drop in the bucket as far as funding goes, but it does help. And then I think lastly, there's a bit of hesitancy when it comes to the evolution of the model. Times have changed a lot since 2002 in education. And as we know, sometimes things are slow to change and slow to move. And so the reactionary time for the evolution and for the online models is still growing, but definitely at a slower pace. So I just want to share those couple of things and thank everyone for your time. And I think at this time, I turn it over to Sarah.
Thanks, Nicole. I loved hearing about Washington State, and we want to say thank you because we definitely learned a lot from you. The state of Illinois learned in our, and I will tell that story as I share our journey. I also want to say thanks to Links for allowing me to come and share the Illinois journey. And that's what it is. The IET journey for Illinois, it's a pathway that's still being built, and it took hundreds of people to get us to where we are now. And adult education in Illinois used to look like this picture on this slide. It's just a lovely winding road. And in my opinion, one of the things that makes adult education so lovely are the teachers that are there for our learners. However, this path didn't move very quickly for our students, and there's a lot of reasons for the slow progress. There's different barriers in the system. So I'd love to tell you that adult education in Illinois now looks like this picture, which is a fast moving system of highways, and people can get on and off and get where they're traveling in a very quick manner. It's not exactly where we are, but you know, a woman can dream. So I'm going to go ahead and put that picture up as well. We did accelerate our journey back in 2012. We became part of 5 states that received funding through the Accelerating Opportunity Initiative. And the funding came from Jobs for the Future and others, and we implemented in Illinois. So we want to say thanks to our senior leadership from ICCB, which is the Illinois Community College Board. We were able to get a jump start towards successful IET programming. And this was pre-WIOA, and we didn't call them IETs yet, but it provided the foundational start to that better pathway. So our first steps on the journey. During the design and implementation phases, Illinois selected and funded with AO support 8 community colleges to participate in ICAPS. And as said earlier, I was going to tell you what ICAPS is, and that is Illinois' brand for IET, and it stands for Integrated Career and Academic Prep System. These original 8 colleges piloted and paved the way for marketing, implementation, and expanding of AO and its innovative approach. As I just mentioned, we visited Washington State twice as a team, and we wanted to see how they were implementing the IBEST model, which was very, very helpful. But again, I want to give credit to our senior leadership. Although there was specific criteria to follow, and we saw the highly successful Washington model, our 8 colleges were encouraged to examine what assets they had and where the most effective partnerships could be leveraged for success. So they were able to build on what they already had. I'll jump ahead a decade and tell you that this is still true. I think one of the strongest points towards our success in Illinois is that each journey is different, and we celebrate that. Arthur Ashe once said, "Start where you are, use what you have, do what you can." And this is how our beginning colleges started. And really now I think all of our programs, because now we brought our school districts and our community-based organizations, our CBOs along, and they're using this same model as they continue to build IETs. Okay, I jumped ahead a decade. Now let's go back and continue the journey. So there was support for the journey. Our senior leadership also saw the need for support for our colleges as they developed and implemented their IETs or ICAPS. They asked our adult education professional development team and our CTE professional development team to join forces in this support. And we developed the key items that you see on your screen: the Transitions Academy, the 20 Minutes of Fame presentations, mentors, a transitions newsletter, webinars, a transitions blog, and in-person trainings on site. So all of these work together to support our colleges at that time that were developing their IETs. And I think Lon's going to put a couple of links in the chat for you if you want to take a look at the Transitions Academy. It's still going on. It's evolved over time. And also a link to our transitions newsletter. Thank you for putting those in the chat. So let me tell you just a little bit about that Transitions Academy, because it was foundational in support and what it looked like initially, and then what it looks like today, because it's still happening. So there was just a few foundational pieces that are on your slide there. It was a 6 to 8 month project that we had a Transitions Academy launch where there was a specific, they would make a particular logic model. They would attend professional development requirements, national conferences, as well as state and local conferences. They had to present a project at an open forum where they told about how they developed and implemented their ICAPS and their bridges. And they also participated in a follow-up spring activity. So that was the initial Transitions Academy. Now we still run a year-long approach with a variety of different types of ways to interact and to use the supports that are in place. Now we have a virtual fall convening that's free and open to anybody and free, easily accessible as well. And then we have a follow-up in-person, a team approach to planning. So we have teams come for a full day intensive, and we call that our cohort convos. And the focus is on communication and collaboration. So let's continue our journey. And we had some early success that was pretty exciting. We had our original 8 that implemented. We had 6 that added the second year and 4 more on year 3. We were really making progress. Just like the picture that you see on the screen, we were scaling. And this particular picture comes from a tower that's being built in Chicago. And I use this picture on purpose because I wanted to make the point that Illinois is a very diverse state. We have the very urban area of Chicago, and a lot of our colleges and CBOs are there, but we also have suburban and a lot of rural areas. And so our IETs look very different depending on where you are in the state. Some of our colleges were able to use resources from their community or for college sources, and our partnerships and employers were really growing. We had a ton of success early on. We had champions also helping us tell the success story. The woman on the screen's name is Lucretia Conan, and she was an Illinois team teacher from one of our early adopter colleges. She, along with many of the others, championed the ICAPS cause, sharing messaging with others. We had a series of team teacher videos that we made. There was original ones that were made over a decade ago, and then we made a refreshed version about 2 or 3 years ago. And again, we're going to put that link in the chat. Thank you very much. And I mentioned champions because champions are still a vital part of our journey today. A nursing instructor can share the messaging best to another nursing instructor from another part of the state. An employer can share the messaging best with another employer, and a CTE dean can share the messaging best with, well, you get the picture. So we love to focus on our champions. Champions and mentoring are 2 of the key pieces that we still use as we scale. But sometimes there's a rough patch. Our brag journey did hit a rough patch. The first one was a state budget impasse. So from July 2015 to August 2017, and yeah, I did not misspeak right there, we were without a complete state budget. We hit some bumpy roads, and all of the scaling of our pathways looked like the broken highway you see in this picture. ICAPS still continue to exist, but many of the programs had to scale back, and it definitely wasn't growing at the same rate that it had been. We hit a second rough patch, and you may be familiar with this one. It's called the pandemic. And as our programs were just coming out of the budget impasse, the pandemic hit, and a lot of programs had to pivot in an effort to best support their learners. And many of the ICAPS programs were paused, and the resources were very different. The good news is we did learn a lot and grow from the pandemic as well. And I'd love to tell you, as our journey continues, that following our rocky patches, that the new day dawned and we had tremendous success. And that's a great story. That's not exactly our story. I wish it was. Our story is a little more winding road than that. There continues to be ups and downs. One of the things that we found is that sometimes our ICAPS are too dependent on an individual person in a program. That person leaves and this big hole exists, and it takes a lot of time to fill. So that's one of our lessons learned, that we need to have processes in place and not be too dependent on one champion. I will tell you that thanks to the support of ICCB and the persistence and innovation of our programs, many new types of ICAPS were developed, and we have seen progress. So let me share with you a few of the ups of our journey. And there's a few more lessons learned. One huge move in the right direction came from our better digital skills and increased access to Wi-Fi. Virtual training has helped many of our programs rethink how they can provide options to their students. It has expanded who the training partners could be, which has made a huge impact. This, along with increased partnering, has helped our community-based organizations and our school districts. In addition to increased partnering, we also helped our CBOs leverage their already existing strong partnerships in their communities. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about one of those in just a minute. One of the reasons that we spent time supporting our CBOs and their development of ICAPS was ICCB changed the requirement, and now in FY24, every adult education program in Illinois is required to have an approved bridge, an approved ICAPS, and run one of each of them. And I saw a lot of you put that in the chat, that that's happening in your state as well. So I don't know how your programs feel about that requirement. I will tell you that this requirement came in Illinois with several years' notice. This is coming, get ready. It also came with tons of success. One of the supports that's in place that's helping programs is our approval of our ability to benefit Illinois state plan. Just like Washington, we were able to get a state plan in place, and that helps our students with some of the funding. Also, Illinois has now participated in the IET design camp with 2 different cohorts in 2 different years. And we gleaned a ton of resources. We've been able to share those resources with the rest of the state and integrate those into state level resources that we have on our ICAPS website. We were able to meet people from other states, and we could learn from them and with them, and we found that to be particularly valuable. So the journey continues. I want to share a wonderful story, and it's outlined that that ICCB, along with my PD Center and our CTE partners, the Illinois Center for Specialized Professional Support, spent time meeting individually with programs to get everybody up to scale in being able to provide an IET. The process went something like this. We sat down and listened. We listened to what they had in place. What were they doing well? What partnerships did they already have in place? What did their students need? Some of our smaller programs may have thought that providing an IET a few years ago, they thought that was not possible because, we're not big enough. We don't have some of the assets that we need that the larger programs have. But when we sat down and talked with them and found the strong partnerships they had in their community, it was amazing. And that really helped them in their development of their IETs. And specifically, also the small programs were more nimble, and they could pivot and find ways to use those partnerships into that could keep them going for years. So let me tell you about the picture on the screen, because this is evidence of one of the ups in the journey. This picture was shared in our Spring Transitions newsletter. Yep, I mentioned that started over 10 years ago, and we're up to volume 12 now. And the newsletter has evolved from its first edition, just as our IETs, our ICAPS has evolved in Illinois. The text associated of this picture on the newsletter says, please celebrate with PUITAC students who achieve Master's Certified Food Service Professional Certification through their ICAPS program and completed chef training. They both scored very highly and plan to take the education they received to venture further into restaurant management and ownership. Thanks to PUITAC for their innovative approach to ICAPS. So we love those individual stories of success. So our journey continues as the roadmap changes. Our IET models have expanded. We now have a Model 1 and a Model 2. Model 2 expanded the training partners beyond our CTE college partners. We started with the colleges, and then they already had those partnerships in place with their CTE partnerships. And Model 1 includes transferable college credit. Model 2 does not include college credit. Both lead to employment opportunities, industry recognized credentials, and high school equivalency. And I'll give you a little look at this model in a visual. And as I told you, they're basically largely the same, other than the credit part of it. I also want to point out the bridge that's on here. The bridge programs is a feeder program into our ICAPS, and it helps our students prepare for the rigorous training of the IET. It is not required in Illinois to begin with bridge and then transition to ICAPS. However, many of our programs have found this to be a very successful model and a good support for students. And it also gives an entry point for many students. And we have another link if you want to look at the full model with all of the information on it. So our FY23 journey, what went right? In FY23, we had a total of 198 approved bridges, and this was an increase of 13 from the year before. We had, and this is where we made some big jumps, 153 approved ICAPS, and that was an increase of 33 from FY22. I also want to share with you and point out that FY23 is not over yet. And we have 2 programs that are still participating. They have until Friday in the IET Design Camp summer cohort, and they are ready to submit their ICAPS proposals following the end of their participation in Design Camp. So we're pretty excited about that. And we'll have them join us in, and they'll run their ICAPS in the fall. Okay, what else went right? Let me give you some numbers by sectors. We have ICAPS and bridges in nearly every career pathway. You can see some places that we are very strong, and that is in the health science field. We have a lot of bridges in health science, and then maybe they'll have like a phlebotomy or a community health worker or some type of training that goes into their certification and employment. Illinois also, if you need a little geography lesson, we are in the middle of the country. So one of the things that we have is a lot of highways running through us. We have a lot of warehouses. And so transportation, distribution, and logistics is another strong suit for us. Manufacturing, we have a lot, and that includes like a CNC operator, a welder. There's that. A lot of our earlier ICAPS were in manufacturing. We still continue to grow there. We also added a career pathways bridge that helps for the exploration and to maybe decide which type of training they want to go into. So that kind of gives you an idea of where our bridges and ICAPS are. And then one other slide for you is what went right is breakdown by the types of programs. For sure, our early ICAPS, our IETs were in our community colleges, which was a large percentage of our adult education providers as well. But our community-based organizations are starting to catch up. They have tons of bridges. We have some really strong new ICAPS that were run in FY23, and we're really looking forward to see what is going to happen next year in FY24. As I mentioned, we also have adult education in our school districts, in regional offices of education, and also our Illinois Department of Corrections. They have 2 strong ICAPS that are running this spring. And so we are excited to see the progress, and we hope to grow that as well. So those are the ups and what went right. They also asked me to share with you what's challenging. And we have some ongoing challenges. Two of them have with us from the very start. One of them is cost and finding ways to braid funding to make IETs more feasible. The other is messaging. Some programs have found it very effective ways to share the benefits of the programming of IET. However, it's still a challenge to effectively message to potential learners the value. I did mention champions. That is one of the ways that some of the programs are working to combat that challenge of messaging. And the last challenge is fairly new, and that is that our employers are struggling to fill their positions. Learners may find employment before they complete the training program and leave early. So because there's jobs that are readily accessible, so that's been a little bit of a challenge. Potential learners may not be as interested in training programs. But again, that is a challenge that we are working towards finding solutions, but just in sharing with you what some of our challenges are. I also was asked to give a little bit of advice for your journey. So some of this I've mentioned, but let me put it all together here for you, is focus on and leverage what you already have. Remember, start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. Find champions and use them. Use them in messaging, but also in mentoring. We found mentoring really, really helpful. Successful programs were really able to build and provide help for additional programs. Spotlight success in a systematic way. We did that through our ongoing year-long professional development, through sharing of resources, through a website, and a whole variety of ways. We also provide some information on social media, spotlighting good success, and share resources. And I just want to give a shout out and return you to one of the first slides that we have talking about the IET design toolkit. That links provided, that's something that we reference a lot. And so I just really encourage you to use the resources that are there. And I will also, as I finish up today, say be persistent. Hopefully both Illinois and your state will build that robust pathway of roads for our learners to get them to their goals. That's what we're working towards, and we hope that for you as well. And I just want to say thank you for letting me share Illinois' journey. And now I'm going to turn it over to Ben.
Thank you, Sarah. Hello, everyone. I hope you all are doing well today. Thank you, Lynx, for the opportunity to present. We in Wisconsin are very humbled to share our IET state story. Next slide. So I wanted to begin with a bit of a backdrop of the Wisconsin context. Within our state, the Wisconsin Technical College System, or the WTCS, as I'll refer to throughout this presentation, serves as our Title II program under WIOA. In total, we have a total of 23 funded AEFLA providers in the state, including each of the 16 WTCS colleges and 7 community-based organizations. Roughly $6 million in AEFLA funds are awarded annually, and the state Title II program serves over 13,000 learners per year. Wisconsin has also been a national leader in educational and employment outcomes under WIOA. And in part, we believe this success connects to our state's history of career pathways, which also has strong foundational connections to our state IET story. Next slide. So within Wisconsin, the WTCS structures its educational offerings and partnerships into a career pathways model, which creates an efficient student-centered approach to education and training. Career pathways are really designed to meet a student where they are and guide them through the learning and credentialing journey with the resources that they need to arrive where they want to be. So within Wisconsin career pathways, we believe that these career pathways are foundational to our IET programming because it really provides us a lens to view IET as an on-ramp to credentials that are connected to the labor market. Next slide, please. So the creation of industry-validated credentials is key to our career pathways approach. Each WTCS credential is tied to workforce needs and validated through labor market data and local employer support. So employers play a vital role also in designing our curriculum to prepare learners for the workforce. And the use of competency-based education ensures learners have the skills to be successful within employment. Employers also serve on credential advisory committees to inform programmatic changes and also to inform the creation of stackable credentials. So the stackable credential approach, such as from a nursing assistant technical diploma to a nursing associate degree, which you can see on the screen, provides a clear path for students to earn credentials and earn labor market value and higher earnings as they advance along their career pathway. So with our rich history of career pathways, Wisconsin, we believe, was really poised for success to offer IET when WIOA was authorized. Next, I'm going to just highlight for you a few of the ways our Wisconsin Technical College System Office has supported IET implementation and expansion throughout our IET journey. Next slide. So our state IET model really blends the IET definition under WIOA as well as state level requirements that we've implemented. So within Wisconsin, we established policy that AEFLA supported IET must connect to a WTCS credential or industry certification. This approach fully leverages the benefits of our career pathways philosophy and also provides IET learners with a roadmap to industry validated credentials and upward social mobility. Wisconsin's IET providers have connected our IET to these credentials, including the first credential in a stackable credential model, which again provides learners with a solid pathway to career advancement and future wage potential. To strengthen connection to this policy, our office, the WTCS office that I work for, implemented an IET planning tool, which is submitted by IET providers for system office staff review and ongoing coaching in the development of IET. The tool prompts providers to detail how IET connects to credentials and industry certifications, as well as laddering opportunities to additional credentials in a pathway and increased wage potential along the pathway. Next slide. I just want to highlight for folks too, we did put a link to the planning tool in the chat if you want to view it. Because Wisconsin's IET offerings are an on-ramp to industry validated credentials with labor market value, guided by our career pathway philosophy, we also set policy that IET is prioritized to serve the underemployed and unemployed within Wisconsin, which really intersects with various constructs such as our justice-involved populations, race, and also educational attainment at entry. So this approach really centers equity and access and success by targeting the state's most vulnerable populations and providing them with a pathway to upward social mobility. And to strengthen our connection to this policy, our AEFLA, so federally funded grant awards, including our IET grant category, prompts applicants to detail approaches in reaching diverse populations to expand IET access and points of collaboration with employers, WIOA partners, and community-based organizations to strengthen holistic supports for IET learner success. Next slide. So since the authorization of WIOA, Wisconsin has coordinated ongoing professional development for IET providers across our state. These have included foundational understandings of the federal IET definition, our state-specific requirements, and then things like data reporting and using data to assess IET and support continuous improvement. We've also taken deep dives into team teaching through a multi-week faculty professional development opportunity that was hosted in state. And more recently, we had a state team participate in the AIR IET Basic Design Camp. And then to foster continuous and connected professional development, our state has also coordinated an IET community of practice that meets every other month. So this community provides IET providers an opportunity to share their IET offerings, so to really spotlight the work that they've done and engage in discussions centered on IET development and expansion. Next slide, please. So to further the scaling of IET across Wisconsin, the WTCS has also implemented a series of fiscal supports. In our most recent AEFLA grant competition, we introduced the Innovation in Integrated Education and Training grant category to expand access to IET. A total of $150,000 was allocated annually to support these expansion efforts. The WTCS also allocated state dollars to expand IET. So for this next 2024 fiscal year, we've allocated $1.5 million in an IET expansion grant competition. Wisconsin was also the first state to gain approval for the ability to benefit state option. This has been a huge fiscal lever for us. This has allowed learners without a high school diploma the ability to access federal financial aid for Title IV funded programs. And again, thinking about how our IET is connected to those credentials, it makes ability to benefit a feasible option to support funding. So with our IET offerings, again, connected to those credentials, the learners have an opportunity to access financial aid funds through the ability to benefit state option and specifically pay for the workforce training component or the college credits associated with a WTCS IET. Next slide. So then to just kind of bring it all together, I wanted to highlight some overall state reflections. So Wisconsin has realized many successes through our IET work. First, we fully recognize the alignment of IET to our WTCS mission towards educational equity and our history of career pathways. Through this, we have recognized IET as instrumental to our mission in uplifting the state community and also providing employers with skilled labor. With this recognition, we have also fully maximized various state levers as catalysts to expand IET access. So I covered some of these today, including state policy, various professional development, and then funding. Our state's IET work has also increased awareness across providers and WIOA partners. And this has resulted in identifying IET expansion as a key activity in our WIOA state plan, which contributed to really important connections in accessing Title I training funds to support learners in IET via our state eligible training provider list. Through our IET work, we have seen over 800 AEFLA funded participants reported in IET per year, with significantly stronger WIOA indicators of performance compared to our non-IET participants. One of the biggest challenges that we've experienced as it relates to maintaining momentum with IET has really been faculty and staff turnover, and I know my co-presenters have brought that up as well. This has really brought to light to us the importance of sustainable structures and the value of ongoing IET professional development for the field, knowing that professional development isn't a one and done thing, it has to be continuous and ongoing. We've also heard from providers that a barrier to IET expansion has included getting workforce and occupational training faculty on board to co-design and deliver IET offerings. So we've heard that that relationship just takes time to build connections across faculty members in adult ed and then our occupational programs. And then finally, competition with employment right now is huge within Wisconsin. The Wisconsin unemployment rate is 2.4% with record high wages. So this has provided multiple opportunities for individuals who could benefit from IET, the option for higher wages and employment within the short term. So I hope that you found our Wisconsin IET story helpful. I think I'm now going to turn it over to the LINC staff and Marcella.
Great. Thanks so much to all of our presenters. I know that I found those stories to be really fantastic, inspiring, all the positive words. So thank you so much for sharing those. I want to invite our audience now to pause and reflect on what you heard from our presenters and share in the chat if you have a takeaway or something that, as you reflect on your own state story, something that resonated for you from what was shared. And as you're doing that, if you have any questions that you would like to hear more about, please feel free to put those in as well. I just wanted to call attention to what Katie from Kentucky shared, saying, I'm glad to hear Kentucky's struggles are not just our struggles. And I think that that's really one of the benefits of a panel like this. And it's always great to hear that we're not alone. Things that we're going through, others are going through as well. Carrie from Michigan shared, Michigan plans to develop a planning grant to incentivize the creation of new IET offerings by funding the design process. What advice can be shared about this process? Would one of our panelists like to take this one on?
I can jump in first and just share a little bit about what we did in Wisconsin. One of the things, going back to our career pathways philosophy and ensuring that IET is connected to a credential or industry certification, and then also connected to a longer term career pathway. One of the requirements that we built into our AEFLA IET grant was that any IET that you're proposing for funding must connect with your local areas, workforce development areas, top 25 hot jobs. So there's just this very clear connection between the IET and pathways to wages and employment.
Great, thanks so much, Ben. I wanted to maybe move ahead. Some other questions, comments. Have Nicole from Arizona shared, I appreciate everything that was shared. It's always helpful to hear what other states are doing. One thing that really hit home was the need for ensuring that not only one individual has all the expertise in IET or anything else, because people do leave, creating gaps. And Christy from Ohio asked a question specifically for Illinois. I love the bridge classes before IETs. I noticed that you have a substantial number for IELCE bridge courses, but no IETs listed. Was this because these ELs use the IELCE bridge course to bridge to different IETs? If so, what kind of IELCE bridge courses were offered to prepare them for this? Sarah?
Yeah, so that's a good question. And I will tell you that that is exactly what happened is some of the IELCE bridges then went into career pathway specific training kinds of, and they're integrated into those ICAPS. I will also tell you that that's an area that we're expanding and growing in Illinois. So I think there's going to be some difference. There's going to be some in FY24, there's going to be ICAPS that are more specifically taking the bridge IELCE bridge students and putting them into those ICAPS. And I will tell you an area that we're really trying to provide is entrepreneurship, some type of, and we are doing a couple of pilots of entrepreneurship ICAPS in Illinois, and we see that as a requested area for a lot of our EL students. Even the example that I shared with you, I will tell you that in that training, those students, I'm pretty sure did receive IELCE funding for that chef training, and then they are looking at in the future having restaurant ownership.
That's fantastic. Okay, and just again, drawing attention to a comment from Cheryl, what Illinois shared about the need to find, develop, utilize champions is so important. If you have any additional questions, I invite you to move or include those in the chat, but I wanted to move us forward a little bit to the next slide so that I could highlight again for you some of the resources that we have available related to IET. Again, we have the Advanced IET Resources page on links. We have the URL there as well as a screenshot on the right-hand side of the page. You can look at the links resource collection for some of those additional resources that I mentioned at the beginning. And then we also have the IET and corrections guide, and Long is providing those links in the chat. Thinking ahead to next month, we will be talking about state supports for correctional and re-entry education. We hope that you'll be able to join us for that fantastic session It will take place on July 26th. It'll be from 3 to 4:30 p.m. Eastern or noon to 1:30 p.m. Pacific. Long has shared in the chat the link so that you can register for that. And if you have any questions that you would like us to make sure that our facilitator or our presenter rather for that session addresses, please put those in the chat so we can make sure that we're addressing your needs. Pause for a moment to allow you to some time to register. And as you do that, I want to echo Adria's comment in the chat. Thanks so much to all of our presenters. You were absolutely fantastic. I learned so much from all of you. It's so interesting to hear all the different stories. And I know it's always really helpful for me to just get a regrounding in the basics. Even if we've heard it before, it's really helpful to have that as well. So thank you for sharing your inspiring stories. Thanks to our audience for participating and attending and spending time with us today. We hope you'll join us for next month's session, and we will see you all then. Thanks, everyone.